The Resolute slid out of hyperspace with the silence of a predator gliding through deep water. Commander Jack Rourke sat in the forward lounge, coffee steaming in a ceramic mug that had survived 3 tours and a brief stint as an improvised hammer. Out the viewport, the United Systems Assembly Station filled the frame, a glittering wheel of habitats and spires, rotating slowly against a backdrop of 2 suns casting long, copper shadows. Rourke leaned forward, studying it. He'd been here before, but the scale never failed to hit him. The central ring was the size of Manhattan. Its spokes were threaded with translucent tunnels where aquatic species drifted, their bodies glowing faintly. In the docking arms, ships of every conceivable design were clamped in place, jagged hulls of Trelas war barges, bulbous gas-breather barges wrapped in containment fields, needle-like couriers from the Arraigned Collective. The intercom chimed. "Commander Rourke, final approach. Docking in 3 minutes." He drained the mug and stood. No matter the ceremony, he knew what this summons meant. The Trelas Dominion didn't call emergency sessions for social calls. The docking bay's airlock opened into a pressure hall bathed in green light. Rourke stepped out into controlled chaos. Drones buzzing overhead, translation drones flitting between clusters of aliens, freight pods gliding on anti-grav sleds. The mixed scent of ozone, brine, and alien spices was the signature of the Assembly's hub. Ambassador Ilona Vance waited near the corridor. Tall, with sharp features and a wardrobe calculated to look neutral in every known culture, she wasted no time on pleasantries. "Chancellor Zerval is moving for a vote to authorize a preventive pacification mission against Earth," she said in a clipped tone. "In plain English, invasion," Rourke finished. She nodded. "He's calling us an emerging destabilizer. The emergency session is already in motion. They've scheduled it for this cycle's main chamber, and you're the one taking the floor for the counterargument." "Lucky me," Rourke muttered. The assembly chamber was a colossal amphitheater, tiered in concentric circles around the floating dais where the speaker's platform hovered. Each delegation occupied an environmental bubble tuned to their species: pockets of liquid, clouds of methane, sterile vacuum for silicon-based life. Between them shimmered the faint blue haze of personal atmosphere fields. As Rourke entered, the human delegation's bubble activated around him: breathable air, Earth gravity. He felt eyes, or equivalents, tracking him as he took his seat. The humans were a small cluster near the outer tier, physically overshadowed by towering reptilians and gelatinous masses the size of delivery vans. Low voices, some spoken, others transmitted directly into the translation network, carried faintly through the chamber. "Rapid fleet expansion. Reckless terraforming. Adapt too quickly." Rourke kept his face neutral. "Let them whisper." The chamber's ambient lights dimmed slightly, signaling the session's start. A gong-like resonance rolled through the space. The presiding chair, a willowy, silver-skinned figure whose name was 50 syllables long, gestured to the central platform. Chancellor Zerval rose from his tier. Even at a distance, he dominated the space, a segmented frame nearly 3 meters tall, each movement smooth and deliberate. His carapace caught the chamber's lights and shifting greens and bronzes, giving him the air of a living statue. "Honored Assembly," his voice began, deep and unhurried, each syllable punctuated by a faint click. "The species known as humanity is dangerous." Hollow images bloomed in the air, archival footage of Earth wars, from trench battles of the 20th century to orbital strikes in the asteroid belt just decades ago. Scenes shifted to Starship fleet maneuvers, newly established colonies on disputed worlds, military training drills. "They have multiplied and expanded without restraint," Zerval continued. "They claim worlds without formal sanction. They field warships beyond their sanctioned quota. Their history is one of conflict, improvisation, and retaliation. If such tendencies are allowed to flourish unchecked, stability will shatter. We have the power, now, to contain the flame before it consumes the forest." The final image, a stylized projection of assembly fleets converging on Earth. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the tiers. Zerval's mandibles spread in a gesture that, in his culture, was the equivalent of a satisfied smile. I propose the authorization of a preventive pacification mission, swift, decisive, and merciful. For the good of all. The presiding chair turned toward the human section. Commander Rourke of Earth, you have the floor. Rourke stood, his expression somewhere between casual and amused. He stepped onto the transport disc, which hummed softly as it carried him to the center platform. He paused, letting the silence stretch just a fraction too long. Invade Earth? His voice carried clearly. Are you insane? The translator drones hesitated over. Insane. Cycling through cultural equivalents before settling on, recklessly illogical, for species without a concept of madness. A ripple of reaction spread, some laughter, some frowns, some unreadable. I've seen the Trelast Dominion's fleet charts. Rourke continued, his tone conversational. Impressive. But before you sign off on an invasion, I'd like you to imagine something. You drop into Earth orbit in late November. You're met with freezing crosswinds, half your landing craft ice-locked, and the other half diverted by a hurricane off the coast of Florida. Your ground troops step out into a city where they can't tell if they're facing civilians or militia, because half the time, they're the same people. He let that settle. And that's before you've even met our politicians. A few delegates laughed outright. Others exchanged wary glances. Humanity's history isn't spotless. We've fought wars, yes. We've made mistakes, yes. But we've also pulled colonies back from extinction, rebuilt after disasters, and adapted to every environment we've set foot in. What Chancellor Zerval calls dangerous, I call inconvenient for anyone expecting us to roll over. His gaze swept the tiers. You can fear us if you want. But if you come for us, you'd better pack a long lunch. The presiding chair raised a hand. Time. The platform drifted back to the human tier. As he stepped off, Rourke caught Zerval's compound eyes fixed on him. No visible anger, just the cool appraisal of someone already calculating the next move. The session adjourned with no decision. The vote was scheduled for 3 cycles later. Delegates filed out in clusters, some in heated discussion, others silent. Vance fell into step beside him. You rattled them, she said. Not enough, Rourke replied. Zerval's got momentum, and fear's a strong motivator. We've got 3 cycles to make them see the other side. And if we can't? Rourke glanced at the station's wide observation window as they passed, where Earth's sun glimmered in the far distance. Then we make sure they regret it. The station's diplomatic quarter never slept. Neon glyphs in dozens of languages rippled across curved walls, corridors shifted subtly to accommodate species that walked, slithered, floated, or swam, and the faint vibration of life support machinery thrummed beneath the metal decking. Commander Rourke moved through it like a man threading a crowded marketplace, scanning faces, antennae, tendrils, looking for the right allies before Zerval locked the vote. Ambassador Vance had provided him a list of maybes, delegates neither committed to the Trelast position nor firmly in Earth's corner. They were the kind who could be persuaded, if approached with the right mix of respect, humor, and well-placed reminders of personal debts. Rourke's first stop was a dim alcove lined with cloth banners from the Koresh hegemony. Ambassador Koresh himself stood at the center, a reptilian figure with deep green scales and golden slit eyes, sipping from a steaming bowl. His tail twitched in time with the conversation of 2 aides, but it stilled when he saw Rourke approach. Commander, Koresh said, voice a low rumble. I hear your speech made the chamber restless. That was me being polite, Rourke replied, taking a seat opposite him. Koresh's eyes narrowed slightly. You humans always seem to find humor in crisis. Helps us survive it, Rourke said. And speaking of survival, you still display that Terran oil painting in your embassy? A flicker of teeth, Koresh's version of a smile. Yes. The storm over the harbor. You traded it to me on our first meeting. Rourke leaned in. We have storms like that almost daily on the coasts. Imagine staging an amphibious landing in one. Then imagine our defense forces actually liking that kind of weather. Koresh let the image hang between them, then nodded. I'll consider your position. It wasn't a commitment, but it was movement. Rourke would take it. His next target was more direct. The methane-breathing Moratke occupied a sealed chamber of mist, their silhouette visible only as a hazy shape within. The chamber's intercom clicked as Rourke stepped up. "Commander Rourke," the deep, liquid voice resonated. "I am told you seek my vote. I'm here to remind you of something," Rourke said. 30 years ago, when your colony's star went unstable, who got there first?" There was a pause. "Humans. Your fleet evacuated 30,000 of my people before the assembly relief ships arrived. And no one asked us to. We just saw a crisis and acted. That's the species Zerval wants you to think is dangerous." A low hum of consideration came through the speakers. "You make your point. But Zerval says you act without restraint. That this unpredictability could one day be turned against us." "That's true," Rourke said plainly. "If you make us an enemy. But right now, we're the ones you want at your back when things go wrong." Silence then. "I will think on it." Back in the human quarters, Vance was waiting. "2 maybes in an hour," she said, scanning his notes. "You're good, but it's not enough. Zerval's pulling in support with promises, trade routes, security packs. He's making this about safety versus risk." "Then we change the frame," Rourke said. "Fear works until you see the cost." Her brow lifted. "What are you planning?" "An education," he replied. The Assembly's conflict simulation chamber was a vast spherical room where scenarios could be projected at full immersion. It was usually reserved for training exercises or treaty negotiations. Today, it would host something different. By mid-cycle, word had spread. Delegates filed in, curiosity piqued by rumors of a demonstration. Even Zerval arrived, flanked by aides, his posture betraying nothing. Rourke stood at the control podium. "You've seen the history files, the battle reports. You've heard the arguments. But history's messy, and arguments are just words. So let's do something practical." The chamber dimmed. A holographic Earth blossomed in the center, oceans deep blue, cloud systems swirling. "Scenario 1, Rourke said. "Direct assault." The projection zoomed in. Alien fleet icons appeared in high orbit, descending into atmosphere. Almost immediately, weather systems fractured their formations, cyclones over the Pacific, snow squalls sweeping across Europe. On the ground, defenders exploited terrain, urban choke points, underground transit networks, forests turned into kill zones. Casualty counters ticked upward for the invaders. Within minutes, the fleet retreated in disarray. Scenario 2. Covert infiltration. Now the view showed insertion teams landing in scattered cities. At first, progress, then the humans adapted, improvising countermeasures. Captured alien tech was turned against the infiltrators. Communication nets collapsed under cyber attacks launched from what appeared to be school basements. This time, the simulation ended with the infiltrators surrounded, their extraction ships destroyed. Rourke folded his arms. "That was Ohio. You haven't even met Australia yet." Laughter rippled through the chamber, but beneath it ran an undercurrent of unease. Even delegates amused by the banter saw the point. Earth would not be cheap to conquer. Zerval's aides exchanged quiet clicks. The Chancellor himself remained still, compound eyes reflecting the holographic Earth. When the session ended, Rourke stepped down from the podium. Koresh intercepted him at the exit. "Your demonstration was persuasive," the reptilian said. "You may count my vote. A solid win." But Rourke knew the margin was still razor thin. Vance joined him in the corridor. "That stunt bought us time, maybe a few more votes. But Zerval's already working the other side, saying your simulation proves humans are too dangerous to leave unchecked." "Of course he is," Rourke said. "That's the move I'd make." "And your move?" He glanced toward the main chamber doors, where Zerval was disappearing into a private lift. "Win the final round. In front of everyone." They walked on, the hum of the station's core systems filling the silence. 3 cycles left until the vote. 3 cycles to decide whether Earth remained free, or became a cautionary example in the Assembly's history archives. Rourke had no intention of letting it be the latter. The assembly chamber felt colder than before. Rourke stood with the human delegation on the outer tier, watching the environmental bubbles fill with their occupants. Every seat was taken, even the press tiers were crowded with drones recording every flicker of expression and shift of body language. The air buzzed with expectation. By the end of this cycle, Earth's fate would be decided. The presiding chair called the session to order with a resonant chime. A low pulse of light circled the chamber before fading into stillness. All eyes, compound, multifaceted, or otherwise, turned to the Trelas delegation. Chancellor Zerval rose from his platform with the steady grace of someone who knew exactly how to hold a room. His voice, deep and deliberate, carried without strain. "We have all witnessed the demonstration staged by the human commander," he began. "We have seen how resilient, how adaptable, and, let us speak plainly, how dangerous this species can be. If even in simulation they can repel the combined forces of our member states, then we must ask ourselves, what will they be in 50 cycles? In 100? Do we act now, while we hold the advantage, or do we wait until they cannot be contained?" He paused, letting the translation delays ripple around the chamber. "The answer should be clear. Stability must come before sentiment. Order before chaos. Vote to authorize the pacification mission." Zerval inclined his head toward the chair and sat, his carapace gleaming under the chamber lights. The presiding figure turned toward the human section. "Commander Rourke of Earth, you may address the assembly." The transport disc hummed beneath Rourke's boots as it carried him to the center platform. He took in the tiers one by one, noting the subtle tilts of heads, the narrowed eyes, the folded arms. Some were waiting to be convinced. Others had already decided. "I'm not going to pretend humanity is perfect," Rourke began. His voice was even, measured. "We argue among ourselves. We make mistakes. Sometimes we learn the hard way. That's all true." He took a step forward on the platform. "But you've also seen what that means in practice. We adapt. We endure. We don't give up just because the odds are bad, or impossible. When the Moratke were about to lose a colony to a dying star, we didn't wait for permission. We moved. We saved 30,000 lives. When Koresh traders were stranded in the asteroid belt, we pulled them out. No treaties. No payment. Just help because it was needed." Rourke let the room settle. "Yes, we can be dangerous. So can any of you. The difference is, we don't see strength as something to use against our allies. We see it as something to share when the galaxy needs it." He looked directly toward Zerval's tier. "You say we should be contained. I say if you invade Earth, you won't destroy humanity. You'll make us stronger. You'll unify us in ways you can't imagine. And when we rebuild, and we will rebuild, we'll remember who tried to take our home." The murmurs that followed were sharper now, not just whispers but low conversations in half a dozen tongues. Rourke stepped back. "You can fear us. Or you can stand with us. But understand this, if you choose the first option, you're not ending a threat, you're starting one." The presiding chair gave a short nod. "We will proceed to the vote." A tall column of light rose in the center of the chamber, the voting hologram. Names of member states rotated in cascading rows. One by one, they lit green for approval of Zerval's motion or red for rejection. Rourke's eyes tracked the tally as it formed. The early votes leaned heavily in the Chancellor's favor, greens stacking along the display. Then the first few reds appeared, Koresh hegemony, Arraign collective, the small but vocal Tehran Union. Halfway through, the count stood too close for comfort. Zerval sat still, but his aide's antennae twitched in suppressed anticipation. Another vote turned green. Then another. The gap narrowed until Earth was one red short of blocking the measure. The last undecided name glowed white in the column, Moratke Confederacy. The chamber held its breath. In the haze of their methane bubble, the Moratke delegate shifted forward. "My people remember," the deep, resonant voice said through the translators. "We remember the humans who came for us when no one else would. We vote no." The name flared red. A clear chime signaled the tally's end, motion failed. The chamber erupted, not in chaos, but in a layered chorus of reactions. Relief in some tears, irritation in others, muted satisfaction from a few who'd stayed silent until the count was final. Rourke stepped off the platform, the weight in his chest easing fractionally. Zerval met him in the corridor leading away from the chamber. The Chancellor's mandibles clicked once, sharp and deliberate. "You have won this round," Zerval said. "But understand, Commander, dangerous species do not simply vanish from the minds of those who fear them." Rourke's reply was quiet, steady. "We're not a threat, unless you make us one." For a heartbeat neither moved. Then Zerval turned away, vanishing into the procession of his aides. Rourke made his way to the observation ring, where the station's armored glass curved out into the void. Beyond it, the stars burned in familiar patterns. Somewhere among them was Earth, blue, stubborn, alive. Vance joined him, her reflection faint beside his. "It was close," she said. "Close is still a win," Rourke answered. "For now," she added. He smiled faintly. "That's all we ever get. Now we make it count." They stood in silence a moment longer, watching the slow spin of the station and the steady glow of the stars, each knowing the fight for Earth's place in the galaxy had only begun.